So in my 18 months at Two Rivers Prison, somebody got stabbed or slashed about once a week. There's a difference between stabbings and slashings. Slashings are usually not meant to kill the person. It's the most common form of discipline within a particular gang. So at Rikers Island in New York, for example, slashings are the most common form of razor attacks. And over there, they call them buck 50s. When you get a buck 50 razor across the face, it'll open it up so bad you'll need 150 stitches. That's where that saying comes from. Stabbings are usually meant to kill you. Now, I knew some inmates who went to put in work because they had to save face or they were ordered to by a gang who had ways to stab somebody a bunch without actually making it fatal. But normally, if somebody comes at you with a burner, we call it a burner or a piece, when a shank that we had was maybe 8 inches long, the one that I kept specifically on me whenever I went to yard or whenever I went to chow, that thing was meant to open you up and hit an artery. Gangs like the Whites and the SAs, they got so good with the knife work that they actually would educate their gang members on the best places to hit somebody for a kill shot. It was like Bill the Butcher in Gangs in New York showing Leonardo DiCaprio on the pig where the wounds were and where the kill shots were. And the hits could happen anywhere. It just kind of depends on who's doing the hitting. If it was somebody who was doing life, it didn't really matter where you got killed because they would just go to the hole or they would be sentenced to death. It didn't really matter. They were never getting out anyways. So if you are a prison shot caller, Jimmy, for example, always gave his hits to other lifers because they were the ones with little or nothing to lose. If you remember the last video that I did, I was handed a shank by Jimmy the very first day that I walked into his cell, and that thing never left me. There was 3 kinds of shanks. The first one was the ox. So the ox is just the small razor that gets smuggled in by the guards, and you fasten that to a razor that you use for shaving. And in my opinion, that was the best for killing because you could sneak up behind somebody and nick them right in the artery in his neck, and they've got 5 minutes before they bleed out. That happened on my cell block. So there was a hit. It was a Paisa gang member on a Sereno gang member. These are the Latino gangs. There was some kind of beef over something. I was sitting in my cell the day that it happened. I was reading a book, and all of a sudden I hear some commotion going on in the day room. And I kind of peek out of my cell and I just see all of the inmates turning their backs and walking steadily towards their cells. And when that happens, there's been a hit. Nobody sticks around. Nobody says anything. Nobody makes any noise. Nobody screams. They just get up, they turn, and they walk away. That's when something has just happened. Somebody's just been stabbed. So what had happened was this Paisa guy had come up behind a Sereno and taken that ox and just slashed the artery in his neck, and the guy fell over and he bled to death. I actually didn't see the guy, Jimmy, who was in the cell with me at the time. He just goes, "Hey kid, it's a hit. Don't look." And I kind of just froze and my blood went cold, and I went and I laid on my bed, and all kinds of emotions are going through me. And 10 minutes later, the bell rings and there's a million COs on the cell block, and we're all made to line up with our hands up against the wall. They took a few dudes off in handcuffs, and that was that. The other shank is the big knife, the big long knife, and that's always smuggled in either from the kitchen. Maybe it is a knife itself, an actual knife that we use to cut food in the kitchen. They would sand that down, and that makes a really good blade. That's a good one to defend yourself with too. There were a couple of knife fights where a guy got attacked and he had one of those on him, and it turned into like a stand-up, straight-up, one-on-one knife fight. People can even use a coat hanger to kill you. I remember I was working in the prison kitchen, and one time they found a dude, not dead, but he had been actually run through with the end of a coat hanger. These guys had bent him over and stabbed him repeatedly and so hard with a coat hanger that it was jutting through his body. And they then thrown him into an old laundry cart. And the guy, I guess he was a snitch or something, but by some miracle, the guy ended up surviving. He's hanging up in a closet somewhere right now. But really anything could be made into a shank. There were plastic shanks and spoons that were whittled down and the end chopped off. Those are amateur. Those are baby shanks, we call them. Those couldn't really kill you. Those are kind of meant to just deter or fight off an attacker. A lot of those shanks were kept on the prison yard, and they were buried inside of the grass on the yard. So in case a riot popped off, you just had something you could pull out of the dirt really quick and start doing work. Good shanks were in high demand, and Jimmy had the best shanks. And you would actually pay a lot of money to have somebody who worked in the wood shop or the kitchen to smuggle in a real knife that you could use to kill somebody. And those were the ones that we had in our cell for Jimmy. Guys, if you like that video, make sure to check out the full episode right here and subscribe to the channel right here.